Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today, I have the pleasure of connecting with my man, Jorge Abreu. Abreu? Did I get that right? Abreu?
Yep,
there you go.
got it.
We were just talking about it offline. One of the things I always want to make sure I say people's name correctly. And it says a lot about the origin, too. I always find out. I'll give you a little plug, George, before we start. Kanya, the K's, is originally Congolese. If you see that a lot, you'll see it's from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So us, we have, you said it was what, Brazilian? Cuban. That's right. Just talking about it. So first of all, welcome to the lab. I feel like we're overdue, but it's beautiful because John, who came into this, I think set this up for us, and I'm really excited to hear about, I always like to talk about the individual behind the business because I do believe that you're a reflection, your business is a reflection of who you are, and you've been able to put in some great individuals together. So basically, I mean, your resume is very impressive, George, and I know I can already tell you got the humble grin on your face. You're going to try to brush it off, but we're not going to do that. We got a level set here. You're essentially what I found really interesting. You have a construction company and as well as a investing company, your GP, LP, and you've done really well for yourself. And it's really, your name, it's like a household name. We've seen it in the community. And then Elevate, which again, we had the pleasure of having John pass by. You're the founder of that, and you have partners, and you have a great team. So one of the questions I always have is we have a lot of individuals step in the lab is which one came first, and, maybe take a step back, George, of, who is George and how did this, how did the first foundational pillar start, or at least that the process into getting there?
There's a lot in there. Let me try to sum it all up.
Yes, sir.
I guess it started sometime in college. I realized I didn't want to just graduate and then go work. I was getting an engineering degree. I didn't want to go work for a big corporate company in the engineering department and spend who knows how many years working myself up the ladder.
Yeah.
And once I got that in my head, then it was like, okay, so what am I going to do? What direction am I going to take? And I started reading up on several different highly successful individuals and kept seeing real estate investing. Their wealth was either built on that or they supplemented it with real estate investing. So kind of got hooked at that point and started really researching it and seeing, okay, I want to do real estate investing. Where do I start? How do I do it? So that was a journey within itself. But I think that was the first step, the mindset and knowing the direction I wanted to go. And then to get to where I am now, that direction took some turns here and there and progressed to where, I started with single family investments, then ended up opening a construction company along the way, and then ended up tilting all my focus towards multifamily.
Okay. That's a great level set. That helps. What I like that you said, George, is you talked about, anything around wealth was around real estate or built on it or, used as a wealth preservation. I think it's interesting because you're doing both. I think what I like of having individuals that step in here, they're either real estate investors or they run businesses built around that. I think that's an important conversation because I think real estate in itself is a vehicle. I'm sure you agree. But I think what you've done is you have a real business with systems and et cetera, right? That goes into the business. Would you agree with that, or did I miss something?
No, that's you hit it dead on. At some point early on when I started building these businesses, there's the business where you have an individual that pretty much does it all, or he can maybe even has a staff, but if he is to remove himself, the business stops, crumbles. And that was me for some years. And at some point I told myself, I'm not going to do it like this anymore. You know, I want to build a business. I want to get back some of my time. You know, if I want to step away, if I want to sell my business, if, you know, there's got to be an exit built in, and you can't sell a business that's has no systems, or you're the only one that's producing. It's not really worth anything.
Yeah. So what was George, I'm so glad you touched on that. What was the shift? Like, talk about that shift of what does it look like for someone who's, you know, may think they have a business, but really it's just them. And if they're removed, their business crumbles. And then maybe that's the old George. And what does the new George look like? What did it take? Is it letting go of things? Is it adding things? Is it subtracting? What does that look like? I know there's a lot of pieces and there's not one, but I'm curious maybe what our mind shift should shift to if you're looking to actually build a business.
So you have to be willing to step back and work on the actual business, and not in the day-to-day hustle. You can do both, but you have to make sure you separate that time where you're going to step back and work on the business, work on the systems, work on your team, and then also work on the hustle, you know, and the day-to-day grind. Yeah. I think that's when I made that mindset switch where, okay, I'm going to separate this time weekly. You know, I'm going to block out in my schedule this much time to work on this system. And when that system's done, I'm going to go to the next. And yeah, that was a big change.
Okay. So what did that look like for you? Was that the construction business to start off with, that where you were making those changes, or was that the multifamily? Because I know we talked about both in the beginning, and I want to just talk about how you kind of start transitioning those into one another.
It started with the construction company, because the construction company definitely takes more staff to run.
Right.
And a lot more clients to deal with and whatnot. You know, and if you don't have those things, then I mean, there were times where, you know, I would try to take a vacation and it was impossible. You know, my phone was just nonstop. You know, my team wasn't trained to handle situations. When there was a situation that came up, it was, well, let's call George, he'll solve it. And my natural instinct is I want to solve it. You know, I'm a problem solver, but it's wrong to do it like that. You know, I've got to give the tools to my team and let them handle it.
Got it. Yeah. So, you know, we like to give tactical advice, and I think we're definitely highlighting those points. And just as we kind of shift into your progression of kind of what you've created today and all the wonderful individuals and all the impact that you're having, like boots on the ground in that beginning, I just want to touch on that for a second so people can hear it. You know, when you're in a construction business with an engineer background, I mean, you're probably jaded at this point. You're like, it makes sense. You've been in it. Like, what is it for folks? Like, what does that day-to-day look like? Is it, I believe you guys specialize in roofing and residential and commercial now. Was that the beginning as well, or is that what it elevated to is next as far as the construction business goes?
Yeah, the construction business began because we wanted to scale the single family fix and flips. Mm-hmm. We got burned by some contractors. I felt for me to scale it, I was going to have to either find somebody really solid, which we had not, or go ahead and build it myself. So in the beginning, I mean, it was built from scratch. You know, I was running around, grabbing materials, taking every single phone call, going to estimate jobs. I mean, it was nonstop. It was nuts. I
So,
don't know.
and because I want to understand the connection of the bridge, it's like you went from engineering, like theoretical, like an engineer. Was it like civil engineering or was it architect?
No, electrical engineering.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I never solely bought into going down that path. Even when I graduated and I got a job, my job was in the engineering department at UPS, which was more of being a general contractor. I was responsible for the additions to the warehouses, to if we needed a roof replacement, if we needed to build out a section of the warehouse or office space. So it's more of being a general contractor, not really an engineer. There's very small portion of that ran into the engineering side. So I was never really that deep into it. That probably made that transition you're talking about a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. No, because I figured I'm like, okay, how do you get all the knowledge? So essentially you started learning the skill set of kind of putting teams together essentially, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things we're fascinated about is, or at least I am, I can speak for myself, is like the whole vertical integration, which I'm seeing is where you kind of scratch your own itch. Okay. So contractors out there are a bit of a pain. So let me solve that issue. And then, so you create the construction company. And then after that, it's okay. It's residential. You want to scale up to commercial? Like, what was that? How did Elevate kind of come to existence, which seems to be relatively new, I guess, in your horizon of, I guess when I look at your history of how long you've been doing this for, it's relatively new. You've been in the space for a while, but so how did that jump come about?
It kind of started with, so doing the single family flips,
Yeah.
keeping the fix and flips and the wholesales going. Did some holds, did some smaller multifamily, but mainly the focus was the fix and flips, the houses we didn't want with wholesale. And at the same time, I was growing the construction company, so I was taking on clients, third-party work for not just our projects. And I took on a couple commercial clients, and then I took on a couple large multifamily clients that kind of just started going down that path. And one, I loved it, dealing with a business owner or an investor that's buying a large apartment complex.
Very different feel, right? Very different conversation.
Different feel. Yeah. When I was doing the single family, and most of my clients were investors of single family, they treated it like it was a custom home. And, there were some really good clients that got it, and they were the ones that were doing a good amount of single family, and that was the ideal client. But then every once in a while, I'd get the ones that just didn't disconnect the
emotions.
It's not your house; it's an investment. So that kind of grew on me, or I got tired of that. And then on the multifamily, so one, awesome clients, and then two, I started asking more about the business and how, before that, I thought I didn't know what a syndication was. I didn't know you can put all these investors together and raise the money you needed to go purchase a $50 million property.
How did you find out?
So I started asking, I asked these clients, how do you purchase this? Or, how many of you are there? And so they filled me in on it. Went in and went to a couple seminars and ended up hiring a coach. And man, I found my passion in that, and I did the single family and the multifamily together for a little bit, and then decided to just put all my focus towards multifamily and stop doing any single family investment.
Yeah, no, I want to highlight that for a second, because the asking the clients is key. I mean, that's how I started with, as a real estate, with a real estate agent license, right? I started specifically working with investors, and then I would ask them questions, and you're of service, but at the same time, you're kind of in the, in the weeds, and you're like, oh, okay, this is really how it's going down. And so this is specifically for anyone in trade, even if you're contractors. Like, I don't know what the ratio is of contractors that are out there who maybe don't invest, or maybe agents that don't invest or don't, but I think it's an opportunity where you can add value and then also get an understanding and ask questions. So I think that's a key highlight right there. I think that's like a little ninja trick that sometimes falls by the wayside that I did want to mention. And I don't know if you would agree to that.
I agree 100%. And I see it a lot more in multifamily. You see a lot of brokers that also invest. There's a couple of contractors, that have construction companies and also do investments. So I definitely think you see it more in multifamily.
Yeah. So is it, and one thing I want to touch on as well, you talked about coaching. How important is that for you? And I know people feel a different way about it, but how important was coaching for you?
I mean, it was pretty crucial in how I was able to move quickly. I don't think it's 100% necessary. I think there is other ways of doing it. There is a lot of free content out there nowadays. You can go that route. It's most likely going to take you longer. You're most likely going to fail a little bit more, and learn. And you could also, so what I suggest a lot now that I look back is maybe finding somebody that's doing what you want to be doing at a high level, and then just come and offer them value. Like you said, you interviewed John Okocha. Well, that's exactly what he did with us. He came to us and was willing to put in the work, and it worked out.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's especially in this day and age. Like right now, look, we're on Zoom. We're on a Zoom call, and who knows where this relationship would go. And I say that like with real, like my meetups. I have partners who are doing fix and flips right now. That's from a meetup that I hosted. And at first, when I did it, no one showed up. And I think that's really important for people to hear that, asking the question, not being afraid to ask the question, and then offering value. It can be done over Zoom. It can be done on site, and you can double dip, kind of like what you and I are doing within maybe your industry even. So that's super good. And I'm glad you talked about the coaching thing too, because I think I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's a trade-off, and it's either you're going to spend the money for packaged information, because there's a lot of information out there that's been packaged by somebody, or you're going to literally learn from someone who's boots on the ground as a practitioner, which I think is very important. So that's amazing. So as far as so now we've talked about, you're doing the construction, you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for some clients, you're kind of like seeing what's going on. Then you're like, okay, I got to double down on multifamily. Was it economies of scale? Like what were you thinking behind that move, or you just fell in love with the clientele and the people?
No, I mean, at that point I had already kind of, I wanted to scale. I wanted to build a large business. Scaling the fix and flips, it's it's a lot of work. We were up to maybe 30, 40 homes a year, something like that. And it was also very transactional, from one deal to the next. So that was already kind of getting me thinking twice if this was the path I wanted to go down. I had made money doing it, but it wasn't quite what I wanted as far as building the wealth that I had seeked out to do.
I think that's important. You said it's very transactional. When you say that, do you mean that, well, I guess I know what you mean, but can you elaborate a little bit on that versus multifamily? Like what's the difference for people to just hear that for a second?
There's a lot of different streams of income within one multifamily deal. You've got the transactional part if you're charging your acquisition fees or whatever. And then you've also got the cash flow, and then you've got another fee, or not fee, but your equity once you close on it and sell it finally. Versus, you buy a single family home, you fix it up, and then you sell it. You get paid when you sell it. That's it. Unless you're going to hold it.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. It's good you highlighted that. So, and I'm not sure if I talked about the humble introduction that you were going to have, and then I don't know if I, really honed in on the amount of units that you're doing, which is, very remarkable. But update me, please, because I know guys like you and your company, you guys are always moving. What's the, just so people have some perspective, amount of doors that you have on general partner side versus the doors that you have on the limiting partner side. Again, not that I don't want people to think that it matters that, oh, he's got 1,000 and plus and all that. I think it gives people a perspective, of kind of the scale that we're talking about when we say multifamily. So I guess for you, so you get a chance to tell our listeners, what is it right now? What kind of portfolios are you looking at as far as your investments go from a multifamily perspective?
Yeah, so total amount of doors that we currently have under management is 1,720. We've got another one that we're wrapping up right now, and that one's 264 units, and then we've got another 300 plus unit one that we're going to roll out here soon. So that should put us 2,300 or so in the next couple months.
That's very impressive. How long did it for someone who's listening is like, wow, dang. How long was that process for you, to go from door one to, the doors that you're looking at right now?
It was a process.
Yeah.
One is catching up and gaining all the knowledge to know what's a good deal and how to execute on these multifamily properties. A lot different if you're comparing it to single family. I mean, you're buying a business when you buy a multifamily. You're not just buying the real estate. So that, and then the competition. I mean, there's a lot of competition out there. It's been a great market. Obviously we had COVID come in and mix things up, but before that it was a great market, and it's going to continue to be, I think. So a lot of looking at deals, evaluating deals, submitting offers. It took, I always say this, I mean, I want to say it was at least 100 deals that I underwrote before we landed one.
Wow. So this is from the very initial beginning of landing your first deal. Was John somewhat involved in that phase, or was that probably a little later when he came in?
A little later.
Yeah. Okay, cool. See, you guys, I'm giving you guys here in the lab the entire full spectrum of Elevate here. We're showing extra love. Yeah, John kind of like tell us his experience coming into the fantastic company you put together with your partners, and now we get to hear from like, from the trenches, really, right? Like what it was like from the beginning, which I is
I'm losing your audio.
We get that to edit it out. Are we good?
Yep.
Yeah. The worst thing we can do, I was saying, George, is sit in on these calls and make it sound like it's like an overnight. I'm a big believer of the process, and I think that's what we call it, the lab. Like, what are the books that what are the formulas? Like, what are all the things that need to go into making this, what it is today? It does not happen overnight. And I think it's important. I think a lot of people can sell it, and that's a very different way.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of sacrifice, man. A lot of mindset and things you've got to sacrifice if you want it.
Yeah. All right. So shifting into that kind of end portion of it, I'm glad you brought in mindset, because I think when we kicked off this call, we talked about, I'm a believer that your reflection, your business is a reflection of who you are, right? So kind of getting into, the foundation of you, like what are some things that you feel, or maybe some obstacles that you feel people need to just hurdle over, like as soon as possible, to maybe it's limiting beliefs, whatever that might be, to get from like what would be maybe the old George to the new George of a, maybe it's a new implementation in the system, or maybe it's from door 1 to door 100 or door 1,000. Like what is something that you've seen is probably, yeah, man, this is something that keeps coming to mind every time I'm looking to take that leap.
One that comes to mind is the numbers. Like, don't let the numbers scare you. You go from, at least in my case, single family, I'm talking a couple $100,000 to 20 million. Just the whole mindset behind money, as far as, I feel like in the US, we're really not brought up to talk about our net worth or our investments in general. And I think we should. I mean, we should be talking about those things. And to raise money in multifamily, you've got to feel comfortable talking about that. And you'll find out that the individuals that want to invest feel comfortable telling you exactly what they've got and what they're looking to, how much funds they're looking to place and whatnot.
I love that. I love that because I know I've been on both sides, the entrepreneurial route of being a business owner, and then it still bugs me to this day. Like when I'll have this conversation sometime internally with like family or something like that, or and it's like, I'm very open. Like maybe I'm too open about it. I'm like, yeah, so how much you make on that? Like, I don't know. I can't help it. I mean, if you know something, I know that I can learn from you. So I'm going to ask you. I don't know why it's a kind of a taboo to ask someone how much they made or how much they're making, and what I see in the entrepreneurial community or business owners, it's very straightforward. Like I've had guys show me their entire, like, oh wow, this is like how much you're making on, like, that's cool. I'm like, yeah. And so there's this like abundance state of mind, and I think it's just so important to have that, because when you do this, there's no one benefits from that.
Right.
I can't find out if you can help me or not because I don't know, and you can't find out if, vice versa, right? So, I'm really glad you're hitting the nail on the head on every point here. This is really interesting. What do you think is that keeping it real segment? What is you talked about syndication earlier. You talk about raising capital. Talk about knowing your numbers. What do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that you find in this sexy age of raising capital? What should we be aware of, and maybe even for times like these, make sure that we don't take off more than we could chew, or whatever the case might be.
That who should be aware of us?
I think I'm sorry, I'm syndicators. Yeah, I'm sorry, or people who, yeah.
I could go two ways with that. So
yeah. No, I'm glad to. Yeah, I want to hear.
A syndicator. I mean, I think COVID has brought a whole new meaning to the word reserves. We got to make sure we've got enough reserves to hold up situations like this crazy pandemic, and that we don't try not to over leverage deals. We're going to see opportunities popping up pretty soon, and it's going to be those individuals that over leveraged it, didn't do enough reserves, didn't estimate their capex correctly, aren't managing it correctly or asset managing it close enough, and right there, those are your 4 points.
No, those are good. Yeah.
That you really got to hone in on. Have a good plan on how you're going to asset manage the property. Expenses too. I mean, I guess that goes hand in hand with asset management, but keep an eye on your expenses. Just running a tight ship, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is like great because you're talking about even the current asset in itself. I'm kind of curious, and I had asked John from an acquisition perspective, and maybe I don't know if you're completely let go of that, or I'm sure you're still in the weeds. But what does that look like for you guys? Is it more based on relationships when you're looking to acquire a new asset? Is it still brokers that you count on? What does that look like for even maybe right now when you're looking for opportunities to acquire new multifamily apartments? What is that dominating one when that kind of gets the you to the acquisition table?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough question. So, we started when we first started looking for deals. We were doing cold calling, we were doing mail outs, a lot of networking, and that's how we found our first few deals. Once we gained some traction, then started building more relationships with the brokers. Then we started getting deals that way. Right now, I feel like I'm going to be going back to the way we started, just because it's hard to find good deals right now. A lot of the sellers are still, wanting pre-COVID pricing or even higher. And we're looking for something better than that. Yeah, man, it's tough. I think the relationships are important for sure.
Yeah.
The brokers can still find you good deals. But yeah, I think we're going back to some cold calling.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I always a guy like you, out of curiosity, I'm curious to see what your phone contact would look like. Is it hard to find deals with other people who are like you because you're all trying to find the same deals? Like I guess I'm curious, like for another guy who has another 2,000 units like you, like is it more of, hey, I'm trying to liquidate this, or it's like everyone's trying to buy, so it's kind of like counterintuitive? Like I'm curious. Like, see, I'm asking the questions, man. I'm going shit to the store. I'm not I'm not dodging. I'm like, what does it look like, man, when you're having a conversation with someone in your network, the big boys table?
Yeah, I mean, so we team up and go after the bigger ones.
I like that.
So,
it's like we're talking like you're trying to go against like the big institutions, right? Like
yeah, there's this.
There's levels to this
gap from the institutional stuff and the big but not quite sexy enough for the institutional.
What is that range, by the way? Out of curiosity, is that like 1,000 units, or like what's the 300 units? Like what's the midpoint that you're talking about?
It's more of like I think it's more on the class, like a
class.
A large portfolio of C class, maybe even E minus class. The institutional really like your B plus or A class properties. So maybe to answer unit wise, yeah, maybe like above 800 units.
Oh.
In that class.
It's crazy because there's so many levels. You talk about mid, and then there's the other gray area where there's the typical like 4-unit guy, 12-unit guy, and then there's this gap between like 30 and 50, 70, right? That you guys I don't know if you would look at it. You probably wouldn't, because you're like 100.
We wouldn't unless we had something really close by.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
new area now.
So interesting. There's so many levels to this thing. So I guess that ties into my next question. What is next? We talked about Elevate. Maybe that's the name in itself, pun intended. Where are you guys trying to elevate to? What is next for you guys? Like, or is it just let's continue to do what we're doing? What is it for you guys? What's next?
I mean, I'm always looking to grow and go to the next level. definitely keep doing what we've been doing. That's been working. Hone in more on the systems and the procedures, and really get those down to be able to scale and take it to the next level. Focusing a lot on our equity raising right now, and kind of taking that to the next level. And then, continuing to find the good deals and tying the two, equity, good deal.
Level up, level up. Love it. Core rapid fire questions right before we head out. Just want to hear real quick. You talked about mindset earlier. Do you have a favorite book?
For mindset, yeah, You Can't Hurt Me, for sure.
You Can't Hurt Me?
Yeah.
Nice. Best habit that serves you every day.
Say it again?
Best habit that serves you every day.
Working out.
Cool. Cool. Best tool that helps you excel throughout the day. Could be like an application, notepad, anything.
Active campaign.
Nice. 300 unit apartment building or 3 apartments of 100 units?
300 units. One.
Class B or C?
Ideally B for the right price, for sure.
Okay. Cash flow or equity?
Ooh, that's a good one. Right now, cash flow.
Yeah. Saves you, right? Self-manage or outsource?
That's a tough one, man. Third party for right now, and eventually in-house, I think.
No, we'll find out more on part 2 next time on all these. Surefire. I'm sure you could go down a rabbit hole. If you had one superpower, my man, right before we leave, what would it be from all your years of experiences building businesses, vertical integrations, putting people together? What is one thing that George is working on or wish he had a magic wand to turn on for himself and for the benefit of everybody in his community and your company? What would that be? Do you have something?
Man.
Oh, I came with that heat, man.
Give me an idea here. What would be yours?
Mine, I think right now would be, I'm working on it right now. It's just funnel building. Like I have an agency. I'm going to plug myself. Shout out to Invested Talent. We put all these wonderful content together from our real estate investors. We have a lot and we're putting together products. So I'm really working on a funnel. So I'm working with guys like Russell Brunson and Peng Jun and all those guys because they've literally just dominated the funnel building. So that's one thing I'm like superpower right now. You give me the Russell Brunson touch, and I'm happy because I think we're doing a good job of serving people at the service level right now. So I think that's one for me. There, I put myself out there, George. What else do you want?
I like that one, by the way.
Thank
I'm
you.
all about the funnels, and it's something I need to
continue
to work on. Man, getting the word out more on the equity raising and being able to offer. I feel like we're offering something to investors that some don't really know anything about. Like they don't know that they can actually invest their IRA funds in a multifamily property.
Yeah.
Just for an example. So really trying to get that word out and letting others know, hey, there's other ways of doing this versus stocks or a retirement plan. And yeah, that'd be my superpower, letting everybody know instantly.
Love it. Well, we'll continue to build with you, man. We're going to follow what you're doing. So happy you stepped in today, dropped tons of value. And again, so humble and again, very straight to the point. Love that. Give us very tactical advice. Where can we find out more about all the great stuff that you and your team are doing?
Man, we got a bunch of stuff on our website. So if you go to elevatecig.com, if they want to email me, they can go ahead and email me at George, spelled Jorge, Jorge, at elevatecig.com. They told me they want to go ahead and mention that they listen to this podcast. I'll send them I've got about 4 different checklists for due diligence, questions to ask a deal sponsor, a couple other ones. I'll send over their way.
Look at that. Always over delivering this guy. How can you match this guy? Love it, George. Thank you so much. And we'll be sure to include all that in the show notes. And just like that, we are out.